Okay, so it's clearly concept art. You have an illustration here, but the strengths of your works lie in the actual designs. Um, the first, so my first look to it is that um, you have some pretty cool designs. The only issue that I see is that the the way you are. I'm trying to see if I can say this in a different way. I wouldn't know where to place this as far as like who could you apply with what you have right now. I feel like your current character designs are very narrowed to, well, D&D or for example just RPGs in general. The way you're designing them, it feels very much like it would be fitting in books and things like that, which is not a bad thing. um it's the only issue with that is that there's not a lot, and I it's usually when you create concept art, um, especially like this, you want to broaden your horizons as much as possible, and not. I mean, you do want to have a focus, which is good. So your focus is clear, which is like RPG books. It's very very much like that. However, that's all it's ever gonna be. So what I would do in your position is, for example, each character, I would present a maybe I would keep adjusting the style to be a bit more like maybe it could fit, make it a bit ambiguous, like oh it could fit in a game, it could fit in a um uh like in the book, like try to think of your assets as multi-dimensional instead of like banging on specific um like studios or very small genres in the grand scheme of things. Again, RPGs are huge, of course, but I feel like if you want to make up for some areas of the lack, some areas in your art that lack a little bit in skill, is just something that you have to get better at. In order to make up for it, you should broaden your horizons a little bit more when you're creating this character. So, for example, take one character, show us we have the front side or the three-quarter view, whatever. Then show us the back side, show us some sketch thumbnails, etc. Like show us the process of like you getting to this design, and also think about the obviously you're doing medieval, like medieval fantasy, for this set of characters, which is good. The good point is that you have consistency. Like this whole thing feels consistent, which is good. Um, if I were to hire you, I know exactly what to expect. So that is a big, big plus. You're showing some of it says personal work. Uh, there's some work here I wouldn't show. This is like you're only as good. This saying is so true. You're only as good as your worst painting. That's how people, unfortunately, how people will portray you in general, and the same goes with clients. So they'll always they want to see what's your worst and what to expect from it. Um, so for example, while you're showing the steps of this, which is nice, I wouldn't have that for sure. And the rat is very cute, but I feel like these characters are way better than these two illustrations here. I do like the sort of storytelling for the rats, but I feel like you could have done this. Like you can do this when you get a bit more practice, so you can like tackle an image like this again. Um, this character is the best of two, and then you have some character like some avatar sort of portraits going on here. I would remove the demon guy. The girl looks way better than the guy. He feels very, especially compared to your other work, he feels very like not as good as the ones above here, as far as just general quality goes and design sense as well. Uh, he feels like he's just an anime demon guy. Is what I'm trying to say. He feels a bit out of place. Um, I like that you show the processes. That's always good. It's always a bit of insurance. I don't know if okay. So if you're gonna do variety of the same characters, okay. I feel like your portfolio is way more targeted. Your strength is way more on the concept art side than on the illustration. So maybe I would avoid showing much illustration until you like get a bit better at it. So for example, these characters you could repurpose them. So you could have the characters sort of like skin, like this could be like uh, a different skin, right? For the same character without the background, and you could repurpose this for like concept. But again, like right now, even these characters feel very illustration like, and not much concept like. Because for concepts, I need to see your ideation. I need to see your thumbnailing. I'd like to see more options for one character: front view, back view, material callouts. So that means like every character uh, on its own page. Every character, maybe there would be a little description about it next to it, or some bullet point ideas, and then you'd have the material callouts like a little like line, and then showing like what kind of texture it would be. I mean, there's several ways you can do material callouts. The most common one is just like people have like a little arrow pointing towards an actual material picture or something, and then do that for most things, because if they're concept art, chances are they might be turned into 3D, or you want to give the ability, or you want to show us that hey, these characters could be models, and here's what the textures would look like and feel like. Um, so yeah, as far as design goes, one thing I like the variety of shapes you're using here within the silhouette, but outside of the silhouette, your characters look too similar. Uh, that's the only thing. I mean, for this set, obviously. But I can see you tend to do the same with other ones. For example, here, this guy versus that guy, it just looks like it's the same silhouette, with exception of like, okay, it's a little spikier here, and this one is a bit rounder. But I would really like to see bigger difference in the silhouette between characters of the same archetype, right? But you do well with the shapes within the silhouette. So uh, this guy is wearing this cloth, and it has that shape, and the swords are different, so that sort of stuff. This sword is really cool, by the way. This looks fucking awesome. That's another thing. If your characters have stuff they are holding, that would be a separate, like, you should show that separately as well. They can be holding it, it's fine, but I would like to see the actual design like on the side or something like that. um like attitudes and personality. Wait, poses are repeated throughout the lay. I mean, poses is not a huge deal, I'll be honest with you. No one really cares that much about the posing personality, unless you're doing what I like to call illustrative uh, concept art, which is kind of like it's a it's a beauty version of concept art that can then be repurposed as marketing art, or Or for example, in a lot of games, you see like the corner when a character speaks, you see like their portrait or whatever, and it's usually like a painting or something. That sort of stuff is like illustrative concept because you're designing a character while making the render and everything pretty, including gesture, etc. For concept, that helps. It's good if you have like different kind of poses, etc., showing the character. That's fine, but that would not be my main critique, right? So let me see this one. This just reminds me of JoJo. uh, yeah, I feel like also your art style tends to be a bit more towards the RPG. You know, it's kind of like I don't really know how to explain it. Your art style, but I would recommend either going even more stylized or a bit more realistic as far as proportions goes. I think you're going more realistic. I think that's the direction you're trying to take. So maybe I would keep going with that. You know. But yeah, I'd feel like you'd ease much easier get concept art jobs than illustration as it stands from what you're showing me right now. Um, I like your presentation, so that's definitely a good point. Like it's very easy to see, very easy to understand, um, like what you're showing to me. Uh, oh, I can't click on these ones. I'd like to click on these pages, these 3 pages. Um, I like the avatars too. This is a good addition. So, for example, if you have an avatar of this character, I'd still like to see the full body character with everything else that I mentioned, like material callouts and stuff. Now, here's the thing. This what I just said is to get you work. I know what you mean. I looked at Pathfinder D&D for selling these for obvious reasons. Yes. So here's the thing. If you are targeting specifically those, I don't think you'll get work yet for those specific, Pathfinder and D&D. You would have to tweak. You have to get better, and you'd have to tweak your style still a bit more. They do have exaggerated realism, but I feel like yours is still a bit like it's a step farther into stylized. You should go a step closer to realistic as far as proportions go. Clearly, you're trying to render it realistically. That is no doubt. You're trying to light it realistically as well. But I feel like, for example, these shoes are way too big for like everything on his body. Like the forearms are way too long. So there's some anatomy even within like um, stylized proportions. There's some issues with the anatomy proportion. I think that is your main issue. Is like proportions. Proportions seem to be your main fundamental issues. Your values are not really that bad. I'll be honest with you. You go a little too dirty here and there. Um, but it's like I think you can get way easier. You can get better at that much easier than maybe some other areas. Uh, I feel like some of these I feel like some of these shapes you're just doing brushwork for the sake of brushwork, but you're not really understanding like for example how the pants are folding. I don't like I don't get that. So I would definitely pay attention um to that because that adds to realism even if it's stylized. And that's kind of important for I feel like you've done that well in some of these characters for sure. In some others you fell back behind, but that's kind of normal. Kind of pointing out the obvious now there. This feel very high fantasy and doesn't match with the rest of the characters. But yeah, I mean you have 2 options. You either keep doing what you're doing, which is not bad. The only thing stopping you from even getting work, you have like quite a few characters here. If all of these were like a level or two higher, um, like more refined, etc. And like if you just knew, if you practiced more and you got better, maybe a step or two, then I could see you get work in Pathfinder. D&D not yet, um, but knowing uh, knowing that you want to get work just in general, I would tweak what you have and add to it, or I would make another set of characters taking into consideration the points that I mentioned that would broaden your horizons. Don't be afraid to use. Please use reference. I don't know if you have or not. I'm assuming you did, but like use reference to the point where like you can maybe not copy because that's not good, but heavily reference something. Uh, you can kind of cheat a little bit. I hate giving this I hate giving this what's the word, um it's not critique, tip. I hate giving this tip because it can be taken out of context so much, and it can be more of a crutch than not. But if you're really needing to level up fast, you can grab reference. Don't copy it one to one, but you can copy like specific parts of it. So like grab a bunch of reference for like folds, for example. Let's say folds of pants, right? Like have 10 of them, and you can copy almost like photocopy, or you're doing almost like a study, but it's in your character, right? And you take like small portions, very small portions of each reference that make up a new image, and like that it won't look like, I mean, it's not plagiarism because it's such a small portion that you're taking. However, the the issue with that is that you will find like you'll find that your work gets better or it's better rendered. um I've okay so I've gotten into that issue when I was very early on and I really needed work and I needed to level up just like that. I've gotten that advice. Um, and it was Dave. I don't know if I should say that. It was Dave who gave me that advice. The issue is that it became a crutch because I'm like, holy shit, I can just do that. And I mean, yes, I am copying, but it's very like small incremental amounts. Like let's say the whole, let's say let's say that this is your reference, right? This character here is your reference. I would just take a very small area of the reference, and then I would move on to another reference that would complete the rest of my image, like piece by piece. The problem with that is that I was like, holy shit, I can just do that. The issue is that you can't just do that because it limits you, and it hinders your imagination, and um, you become extremely you feel like you will never be able to draw anything without looking at something. um so you need to take what I said with a fistful of salt because it's a double-edged sword. But I also know how much work you really need, and I want to help you, but you just need to know that maybe just do that for like urgent situations, um, and like get a bit of money, and on the side, fake it till make it type of thing, and on the side you just keep on working and studying fundamentals, your fundamentals and stuff like that. Because right now I feel like uh, you're only being set back by your own skills. It's really that you're doing really nothing wrong. You have a variety of characters, which is great. You're setting them in groups, um, and I also love that it's groups of three. I don't know why I like odd numbers. You have quite a bit of good enough amount of it, I'd say. You even gave like a splash art of the characters that you have drawn, or that we see reoccurring here. So you're theming everything very nicely. You're showing us that you actually thought about the characters, and there's descriptions of them. Like, this is super fucking cool. You're not doing anything wrong. The only thing is that you're setting yourself for like a very, all things considered, a very narrow, RPG books specifically. The skill ceiling tends to be higher, and the pay is not that great. I'll tell you right now. Because I I was gonna do work for Pathfinder and I decided to say no because of the payments. But anyways, regardless, you're not in a position to. I'd say you're not in a position to be picky. So you'll do what you gotta do, right? And if you gotta create content fast and put it out fast, then I would maybe recommend what I mentioned with the turning your studies into like work. But you have to be very delicate with that. I'd say that it's probably bad advice what I'm saying. Um, but I also understand how it is to be in a situation where you just need the money, and this won't get you in trouble with the law or anything because you're not plagiarizing anything. You're taking a very small, as long as you make sure that it's like 10% of the whole reference, like a very small amount, that you're doing like a photo study into your character, then you're fine. But you just don't make it a habit. That's all. And I mean that's it. I think I covered everything. Both, yeah. If you want to take this direction, and still like go full on RPG books, then you you have to increase your fundamental art skills, because I think like the designs you're doing are pretty cool. I don't see really anything like too wrong with it. I mean, it obviously can get better, and I could keep critiquing you for another hour. Um, and I'm not. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but there's always things you can add, always things you can improve. For example, I'll tell you one thing that a lot of people do, and I used to do it all the time. This is an RPG book. Where the fuck are the pouches? Like, imagine you're this. The whole thing is that you play D&D even. Like, where do you store your items? Have you thought of that? Like, she has a knife, but where does she put the knife? I Do you know what I'm talking about? So I could keep going on and on and on and on and on about like design flaws and things like that, but you need to make these characters, not in particular, but the next characters you do, think of them. If you are going the RPG routes, actually, whether you go or not, make sure they are believable regardless of the style. Where are they keeping the shit that they hold? You know what I mean? Um, the same is like with this guy. Does he just like carry the swords without? Do you know what I mean? Mega pockets, prison pocket, bag of holding. All right, okay, all right, chat. Um, there's other things like, for example, functionality in your design. Like, why does she have double, like the double fucking, what do you call these? How did I forget the name of uh this shit? I promise you, Chet, I'm a professional. I just forget English words. It's stylish. Belts. How did I forget the name of belts? Anyways, one for the sword, one for the bags. Okay, where is the sword holder? Where does the sword hold? You know what I mean? Sword belt plus a bag belt, bro. Where's the bag? Anyways, other things is like, is this made of metal? Is this made of like what is this made of? The distinction between the materials should be higher, because right now you're rendering everything the same. Um, like yeah. Also another thing is how did she even put these on? Are these like elastic? Where's the seams? Where's the belts holding the arm guards? I'm assuming that's what it is. Um, sword holder equals sheet. Listen, I know what I'm talking about. I just don't remember the names of shit. Okay, chat. When I was art directing, I had to Google everything before I even wrote something down. Like everything, because I kept forgetting. Like, um, yeah. So I mean, there's a bunch of stuff like that that you need to keep in mind a bit more. For example, even something as simple as, oh, okay, so she has this cloth wrapping around her, but you need to paint it in a way where it actually looks like it's tucked in a way that it would actually hold. You know what I mean? So while you can keep a style um, more cartoony or whatever, there needs to be believable. Like on it, the pets are falling from him. You know what I mean? Like it's like a ghost is pulling the. Anyways, I'm done. That concludes my